Alrighty, hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Final Whistle, a Lewiston Tribune sports podcast. I'm sports reporter Sam Taylor, here with Trevor Junt.
Hey man, sports reporter from the Lewiston Tribune as well. What's going on, Sam?
Hey Trevor, thanks for being here, and it's another exciting week. We've March Madness is in full swing. Baseball is nearly in full swing. Opening day is Thursday, and it's been a fun week here locally too with LC baseball doing well, and a really neat event happening across the river at the LC Ice Arena, which we'll get into. And so, before we get into all that, just want to remind you guys that you can listen to the Final Whistle on any platform of your choice. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple, and online at lmtribune.com. So be sure to read our sports coverage of the Lewiston, Clarkston Valley, the Palouse, and the surrounding areas, prep programs, Washington State, Idaho, LC State, all that and more. And so listen, read, and we'll be here. We'll be with you the whole way. So now, Trevor, to get into things, you had a really cool opportunity to attend an event called Save LC Ice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so tell us a little bit about what that event is, where that was, and what was that all about?
Save LC Ice is all about the LC Ice Arena needing a new chiller. So a new chiller is what keeps the ice cold. That's frankly as I could put it. New chillers cost like $450,000 to $600,000. So it's a big deal to need a new chiller. Their chiller's 37 years old. The average lifespan of a chiller is about 20 years. So they're like pushed it pretty far, and they need a new chiller pretty bad. So what they're doing is they're doing some fundraising events. Save LC Ice was pretty dope. I got to go to it. I got to cover it. But what it basically was they had a bunch of games. They had different like free ice skating, free skates. They had raffle events. They had silent auctions. They had vendors. They had like food people as well. It was really cool. Just to go to the event, and then the big draw of the game was the U of I versus WSU club hockey game. It was just really cool. I really liked how the community came together. That's one thing that everybody that was part of Save LC Ice was saying, is that the community really came together for this event. They saw a problem and they want to like help fix that problem, the valley. So that was cool. Definitely WC versus U of I. There's like 3 fights, which was pretty funny because it was a charity event.
Yeah.
So that was great. But in the end, Idaho won 7-5. 2 separate guys had 2 goals in that game. And yeah, it was really cool. There was a few players that talked about how they grew up. There was a player, Micah Clark, who grew up in Pullman, and then a guy, Mac Hagenbach, who plays for Idaho. He grew up in Moscow. So with that, they played at the LC Ice Arena a few different times, a lot when they were childhood. One guy said, "I must have played here 1,000 times," because they started playing since they were 5 years old. Michael Clark said that he was happy with what the two teams were able to accomplish. Um, he said that the event was greater than the game itself, because I mean WC lost, but it wasn't really about losing or winning that game. It was more like, let's help this ice arena, you know. So he said, "I grew up playing in this rink for years, driving from Pullman to practice and to play games here. So see you continue with all the kids here, with all their families, continue to make memories like I did when I was a kid. It was a great feeling." And yeah, it was just really cool to see those two teams come together. It was really cool to see the Valley come together. I loved the fans that were like cheering. I heard "Hockey Hard" and I heard "Light 'em Up, Boys" a lot. It was pretty cool. It was a sold out arena too. 350 people sold out in the stands. Super cool event. Super cool event.
That's awesome. I loved you did a nice job reporting this, a super unique event. And they talked about, the new cost of a new chiller ranging from $450 to $600,000, $450,000 to $600,000. Did obviously at that night you didn't necessarily have an idea of how much they raised. Do you know how much they raised from that event?
I don't. In fact, I don't think they knew at the time how much they raised. I know that 15 times 350, is quite a bit. I don't know the I don't know the exact numbers for that, but it's quite a bit of money. But this is definitely like a not like a one-time event. This is going to be like a continuous thing to try to make more money to get the chiller, because I mean it's a lot of money that they need. So it's going to take a while, but But yeah, I mean the silent auction, they had like 32 silent auctions, different random like baskets that people brought to donate, and then I saw a few for going for like $400. So I'm hoping that they made it quite a few quite a lot of money from those events and that separate things. So that was definitely very cool.
Right on. And it's really neat. So, what kind of programs does the LC Ice Arena host year round? Like, obviously, there's these kids talked about, growing up being at the ice rink. I know they got an open skate in the winter, some club and hockey lessons. Just kind of what did you talk to anybody about how they use the arena year round and what that experience
I
is
mean, you
like?
hit on that. You hit the nail on the head pretty hard there. Definitely like hockey events. They do hockey clinics for like new kids that are like ages from 5 to 10 who've never played hockey before or want to learn how to play hockey. Those last for I think 3 weeks each or 5 weeks each. They had like three separate clinics of like 30 kids, sold out kids. Um, then they also host hockey leagues. They have 7 hockey teams that play at that arena. They have adult leagues like just like beer hockey, which is very chill and very just a separate thing from that. They have free skates during the winter, so it's you I think it's like a you rent skates and then it's free skate. You can skate for how long you want for a certain amount of time, And yeah, they have a bunch of different events there. And they just really want to keep the hockey there so that the kids have a place to go during the winter or a place to play hockey because there's so many kids that are passionate about hockey already at a young age that want to continue playing hockey. So that's why that's important.
Yeah. Nationwide and locally, we hear a lot about, obviously football, basketball, and baseball are popular. Wrestling's on the rise locally. You've got golf. That's a big deal around here. But we don't hear as much about hockey, but obviously it's still like a super significant population of people that play hockey and love hockey. And the LC Ice Arena is like their home for that.
Yeah,
It's super
absolutely.
cool to see
And
that.
it's crazy
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't even know about the LCI's arena
Yeah.
that grew up in the valley. There was a guy that the president, Nate Parker, he said that he lived here 10 years before knowing that the LCI's arena even existed.
Wow.
So it's definitely new for a lot of people, and the valley's learning about hockey. So it's definitely a growing aspect of the valley is hockey in general.
Yeah, and it's cool to see the game grow. I mean, you see this Seattle Kraken logo on like every bar window now.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, that's just that awareness of like the NHL expanding to the Northwest and or to another city in the Northwest and seeing that spread is certainly helpful. And so
Yeah, one thing that both Mac and Micah said is they want kids to learn about hockey because it's a great sport. They
yeah,
want them to continue to play hockey because just how family tight knit the game is, how it like brings people together. That's one thing that they noted multiple times throughout the interviews.
sweet, awesome. And then so you talked about this is a continuous effort. Are there going to be any near term or just like long term ways that people can support the LC Ice Arena?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's LCHA. Shoot, I forgot the website. Let's see.
I'm gonna paste it down below.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, Trevor.
The Lewis Clark Amateur Hockey Association website. You can donate on their website. There's a lot of private donations, so that was great. And yeah, you could just go and donate there as well, just to keep the chiller there, to keep kids to keep playing hockey, to keep the ice arena open. So yeah, you can go donate there, and then look forward to their future events that they host as well.
Awesome, awesome. And now moving on from hockey to basketball, the other winter sport that's in its prime month. It's March Madness for men's and women's college basketball is in full swing, and it's pretty exciting because now we're down to 16 for each tournament. Um, and there was certainly a lot of excitement all around the nation that did the Maryland player travel? Who knows? All those things that happened. But what we'll start with is that so next weekend, so this weekend, Friday and Saturday, Spokane gets to host a portion of the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight for the women's basketball NCAA tournament. And with that, in that field, there's number one seeds UCLA and USC, UConn, Kansas State, Oklahoma. Some other teams in that bracket that are coming to Spokane Arena, and that means that for Coug fans, you'll get to see Charlie Sedgwick. She's not playing, but she'll still be there supporting her teammates like she had medical redshirted this year after the ACL injury that ended her Coug career, but she'll be in Spokane. She's shared on her Instagram story. She's excited to be back in the Northwest. And then for USC, the news that kind of broke the whole nation's heart last night was Juju Watkins also suffering an ACL tear, just minutes into that game. Again, their Trojans rallied and then they won. They beat Mississippi State, but they did it for the majority of the game without Juju. And we've seen women's basketball take off in recent years. Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, and Juju Watkins is just right there in the center. She had a phenomenal freshman year. Her sophomore year was excellent again, and they were one seed, legitimate national title contenders. They would have to. They've got it's not going to be easy. They've got K State, eventually maybe UConn in the next round to get past. But Juju is going to be a big part of making that happen, and now it's just devastating for not only USC fans but just basketball fans everywhere to see a star just not be able to play.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that was a brutal injury.
Yeah.
That sucked to see her writhing in pain.
Yeah.
You knew exactly when she went down what happened to
Yeah.
grabbing the knee like that. Yeah, I don't know. That's just very. It sucks for just the sport in general because she's such a star and she's such a great player and she's an advocate for women's basketball. So that definitely sucked to see. But yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, we have Avery Howe from LC. What her mom played at LC State. What was her name? Rosie.
Yeah, Rosie Albert on Rosie Howe, formerly at Rosie Albert. That's a good point because in Juju's absence, Avery Howe was one of the players that stepped up. I mean, she's been getting about 20 minutes a game, and she's had some big games. But she tied Avery Howe tied her career high with 18 points last night in
18
USC's
points
win.
off the bench is crazy.
It's insane, yeah. And she did that once before against Purdue, and then usually, got around. She was averaging around 6 points, 7 points a game. Had a couple big games in the Big Ten tournament or decent games. But this was definitely probably the biggest game of her career,
Hmm.
just in terms of the context and obviously NCAA tournament. Most writing on it. And yeah, as you said, yeah, Avery Howe is the daughter of Rosie Howe, formerly Rosie Albert, who was the all-time leading scorer at Lewis Clark State College in their women's basketball program. And so she played at LC State from Rosie did from 94 to 98, had scored over 2,700 points. I think it was 2,776. You can check our article at lmtribune.com to verify that number. But and just the fact that she led LC. It's kind of a standard now. The Lewiston community expects the LC State men's and women's basketball programs to go far in the NIAA tournament, at least make it and just be one of the top teams in the Cascade Conference and in the whole league, a whole NAIA. But that kind of started with Rosie's year. Rosie Albert and her team, when they were the Warriors, were the first women's basketball team in LC State history to make the national tournament at the time in '96, and then they made it in each of Rosie's last two seasons, including running a run of the quarterfinals. And so, Rosie Albert she was part of the inaugural or the second ever LC State Hall of Fame class. Ed Sheff was the inaugural inaugural member in 2011, but then they inducted some, five Warrior greats, and she was part of that class in 2013. And then, who was making that trip but a 7-year-old Avery Howell. And so Rosie shared a nice picture with us about, just her son, Brian Howell's a student at LC right now and formerly a member of their men's basketball team. And then and Avery, and then her right next to the banner of her Hall of Fame induction.
Super cool.
And so, yeah, super cool to see that to someone that grew up in Boise, grew up in the state of Idaho, is now under the bright lights of March Madness and balling out. It's just cool.
But I don't think USC will go all the way without Juju Watkins. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I had a little bit of a biased rooting interest bracket that had them meeting UCLA in the Final Four,
Okay.
and then UCLA winning that. But I think, especially without Juju, Kansas State's going to test them. I still think they might win the Sweet 16 this weekend on Saturday against K-State. And then most likely they would face UConn in the Elite Eight. And I think they were already a popular favorite, but I think their chances, unfortunately, just for the state of the game, you never want to see injury and they have that be the reason that they win. Obviously, it won't be the reason, but it certainly won't hurt their chances, unfortunately, not having to face Juju Watkins.
Yeah.
And so I think you can see UConn. They already have a path, and now it's kind of up to them to take that. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So South Carolina, they're not going away. They're going to be playing down in Alabama, Birmingham, in that bracket. They could easily make the Final Four or the national championship. And so, That's the thing about the women's game is that there's a lot of star players. TCU with the LSU transfer Haley Van Loof, Leith, yeah. She's been great, and she balled out for TCU this weekend. And so you got a lot of stars, and who knows? It'll be fun.
Haley Van Lith from Spokane, by the way.
Oh yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a cool connection as well.
It is. It's sad. This I think TCU they're in the other bracket, but it's a sad opportunity that she doesn't get to go to Spokane.
Yeah, fair.
But that would be still maybe let's actually look that up. Because that's awesome.
It is awesome. Yeah, I don't know. That was one thing that we like talked about with my friend group, how she's like from Spokane. But yeah. I mean, what else about March Madness should we talk about? We talked about the men's bracket as well, and what that's looking like, what that's shaping up to be. I think Duke is looking elite. Florida's looking elite. Uh, Maryland won that game barely. I don't think it was a travel, by the way.
Really?
I think that was a gather step and then two steps.
Gotcha.
Even if it was a travel, it was a cool play. So it's something that I'm okay with. But yeah, it's a brutal loss there. But yeah, I don't know. Arkansas, with John Calipari. That's a good story going on to March Madness as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just beat St. John's. So that rivalry of Patino versus Calipari was a very interesting dynamic that we saw. A good storyline.
Totally.
What about the men's bracket? You see anything specific in the men's bracket?
Yeah, I was just not related to necessarily the teams are still in, but it was cool to see Rick Pitino kind of lose his game, and then less than 24 hours later fly to Cleveland to watch his son Richard Pitino coach the New Mexico Lobos in their
That's
game.
really cool. Okay.
And so he was there in the crowd, cheering on for his son and New Mexico. And Mexico, unfortunately, also got ousted from the tournament. But it was a nice picture, obviously, afterward of him, shaking it, being on the court, shaking his son's hand and congratulating him. Because it's really cool not only when you're 76 years old, right, and still coaching really well at a high level, but your son is also having his own success and
Yeah.
beating teams to the March
Again,
Madness
a high level.
at a high
Yes.
level, yeah. And so, but yeah, of the teams related, remaining, I think, well, I picked Duke in my bracket. That's still alive. But I think it's interesting how you have a lot of the top seeds, higher seeds,
Yeah.
that are still left. It's kind of unique that Arkansas is the only double-digit seed left in Sweet 16.
I think statistically, this is like one of the worst March Madnesses that people have seen. I saw a storyline saying like,
Yeah.
is Cinderella stories are they even possible anymore? Because I don't know, it's just so the best schools are just so high level now,
Right.
and
With NIL.
they pay better. Yes, within NIL. So yeah, so I don't know. Saw that. So that's an interesting storyline as well.
Totally.
But yeah, I mean, so we got Duke, Arizona, BYU, Alabama, Auburn, Michigan, and Ole Miss and Michigan State. So yeah, I don't know. I see Duke going all the way. I see this is just Duke going all the way. I see Florida going all the way with Florida, Maryland, Houston, Purdue, Kentucky, Tennessee, Texas Tech, Arkansas. It's these top teams that are just really good. With Cooper Flag, I think Duke's elite. BYU is interesting to me.
Very much so.
They seem kind of like a dark horse candidate to win it all. But yeah, I don't know. That's what I see from these brackets.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. For that Houston Purdue game, Purdue is playing in like basically their backyard. They're playing in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously not as favorite. Obviously Houston is the favorite. I think 7.5 favorite, 7.5 point favorites. And for Kelvin Sampson, a former Washington State coach, started his career as head coaching wise on the Palouse, was an assistant for 2 years, and then brought Wazoo to its first NCAA tournament in 11 years in 1994. Then he coached at Oklahoma, coached in Indiana, and now is at Houston, and has had lots of tournament success everywhere he's gone. But he hasn't captured that national championship yet, and so it was interesting. That Gonzaga Houston game certainly had a lot of local interest riding on it. A lot of Gonzaga fans in the Valley, and the way that ended, that was obviously heartbreaking. But to see Gonzaga fall behind and then just still kind of stay connected to that and stay in the game, I think it was very obvious. I mean, Houston, Kelvin Sampson was very complimentary of Mark Few and Gonzaga.
Mm-hmm.
There's some, personal relationships and friendships there, but the fact that is that Gonzaga was underseeded. They should have been like a 5 seed probably instead of an 8. But the fact is, I mean, just the fact that it was the worst Gonzaga season in years, and that's the fact that they're still able to reach the round of 32 and play at a high level, play a 1 seed to the buzzer, just shows how good of a team it is, even with them suffering, 8 losses.
Touching on Mark Few, I mean,
Yeah.
so many Sweet 16s in a row, so many
Yeah.
great seasons in a row. I don't know if we'll see a thing like that again with the Zags. Well, not just the Zags, with like any team. A
Right.
coach that stays there for such a long time, for over 20 years, almost 30 years now, right? A long time. And just like builds a program slowly but surely. I
Yeah.
don't know how common that's going to be with like these coaches getting poached now.
Totally.
With higher paying schools paying their coaches more. With these lower paying schools keeping their coaches is just not going to be as common. So it's definitely an interesting thing that I don't think we'll see very much of anymore after Mark Few retires, I guess.
Yeah. And I think for Gonzaga, I mean, Gonzaga, one of the reasons that they're moving to the Pac-12, and there's a lot of reasons, but I think they're also looking, this is kind of a different conversation outside of March Madness, but for Gonzaga, just kind of looking to the future, like post Mark Few, is a West Coast Conference job with all this history, granted, still going to be attractive. Who wants to be the guy that follow up Mark Few versus upgrading your basketball league so you're facing Washington State, Oregon State, San Diego State, Boise State every year.
Mm-hmm.
It's already a really great looking basketball league on paper, the Pac-12 that will begin in 2026.
Yeah.
And so I think obviously Mark Few will, who knows how much longer he's got. He could very well coach for 10, 15 more years,
Mm-hmm.
maybe more. Probably not more, but probably 10 or 15. And so, but I eventually they won't have, it's a scary thought. Doug Gonzaga hasn't had to think about since the 90s.
Yeah.
What does life after Mark Few look like? But the reality is that in the near term, they're still going to be in March Madness like every year, and they're
Yes,
still the top of
absolutely.
the sport.
And speaking of the Pac-12, WSU, WNIT, how'd that go, Sam? You got to cover that. Uh, there was a crazy ending. Asteroid Tuhina hit that three, and then there was a stolen ball, and then they scored on a good play, I would say. And then they blocked a 3-point shot to try to end the game, and then honestly, the last shot was just by Utah Valley was just way off.
Yeah.
So how was covering that? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Totally. It was a fantastic atmosphere. I guess shout out to the Wazoo family. There was a WSU family that bought 1,000 tickets and just gave them away.
Okay.
And so it was based on they reported over 1,800 people in attendance. I just my speculation, it didn't seem like it was up to 1,800, but it was still over 1,000, which is fantastic for the women's basketball games just recently in recent history. And so the crowd was electric at times, especially in those moments. And that shot you're talking about, Wazoo was down by 1 at the time, or down by 2, excuse me, down by 2. And then Tara Wallach, the senior playing in the last game at Beasley Coliseum, who the quarter earlier had become the all-time leading player in minutes played.
Mm-hmm.
So over 2,000 minutes, 3,000.
Almost 3,000.
Almost 3,000,
So
yeah.
like 2,977 or something like that. Something
Yeah.
close to that.
Yeah, so that was pretty phenomenal. And just to see how that play went. So Wallach misses the 3. She airballs it, doesn't even hit the rim. So the shot clock is still ticking. It falls into Alex Colville, our 6'6" center's hands. Colville's able to basically fling it from the baseline all the way out to Esther Tahina on the 3-point outside of the arc, beyond the arc. And so AT, though, she was saying that she thought that she had time.
Yeah.
So what she does is she bounce passes it to Deanna Mendez, a great freshman player for them. But Mendez is getting pressured by Utah Valley. They poke the ball out. It's loose. There's 4 seconds on the shot clock. Wallach at this point is over here, having missed the shot, still bummed about that, but is shoot it, shoot it, shoot it. And so AT grabs the ball, takes one dribble off to her right, steps up, fires off the playground style 3. They're playing pickup at this point.
Yeah, it looks so
Yeah,
awkward. It was an interesting shot.
Yeah, and nothing but net, and the Cougars have the lead. And then, as you said, defensively they hold down. On the next possession, AT is able to get a steal, so she makes an impact on defensively. And then the last play, Colville, who caught Wallach's missed shot earlier, is able to block their 3-point attempt. And then Utah Valley does recover, but as you said, the shot is way off. Buzzer, that's the game.
Yeah.
And Wazoo moves on. Wow. So that was pretty stunning, yeah.
And then who do they play next? Do we know that?
Yeah, Washington State. So they'll play at North Dakota State in the Super 16, as they call it. So they'll travel to Fargo, North Dakota, which is about a 8-hour drive, or no, sorry, 8-hour flight or something. Well,
No way,
it's like
dude.
it's a 4-hour flight, but it's like, sorry, I was going off of if you were to fly from like Pullman or Lewiston. But the thing is, they'll fly charter, is what I'm told. So
Okay.
it'll be like a 4-hour flight. So
Okay.
still long, but it's gonna be like it's gonna be interesting to just the reality of just playing in those win or go home scenarios because they have a young team and so many of those players have not experienced that or have very limited experience. Like, at this point, it's just Kira Gardner, Sarah Tahina, and Tara Wallach that experienced an NCAA tournament run.
Mm.
Because Cami Etheridge and she had three straight teams that made three straight NCAA tournaments. Made the NCAA tournament in 3 straight years. And from the last tournament run, there's only 3 players left, and will be only 2 as of next year. And so, but they've continued to make the postseason. They made the WBIT, the Women's Basketball Invitational Tournament, which is like the new NCAA sponsored, like not in the tournament that they did last year. They went to the semis and that had 3 wins at Beasley. It reminded me a lot of their last year. Last year's like quarterfinal WBIT quarterfinal where Bella Mercatete made a game winning shot at the end, and that was stunning. And so just it's been obviously not a perfect year. There were a lot of growing pains. They shot 31% in that
Yeah.
game last night, and they were missing a lot of bunnies. So the reality is that the game shouldn't have been close and shouldn't have been down into the waning seconds in the first place, but it was, and they made the plays to get it done.
But Utah Valley shot around 35%. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Wazoo defense was also kind of, well, not kind of, but was fantastic in terms of just shutting down Utah Valley. And then, an interesting quote from Coach Cami Etheridge was, whenever games are in the 50s or tied in the 50s late in the fourth quarter, like it's gonna get, and it can go any game. It doesn't matter what the rankings of the teams are, the stats, the players, the talent. It could go anyway because at that point you've kind of neutralized each other's strengths, and you're just in a tit for tat battle late in the game.
This is like their worst offensive performance in a win this year, correct?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then for Utah Valley, I mean, this has been their best season in program history. Like they have 19 wins, which is the most in their program history, and so it's interesting how these tournaments are all about the future and preparing your players for the future. And so for Utah Valley, they've got a lot to build off of. But locally for Washington State, they live to fight another day. They go to on Thursday at 5 p.m. They'll play in Fargo, and so
I think this
who knows?
speaks on.
It'll be interesting.
I think this speaks on how good of a coach Etheridge is. By the way,
Yeah.
just being able to shoot 31% and still win a game, play terrific defense, just play well in the crunch time. I think I don't know. It's kind of like a Mark Few situation, not to the best extent of Mark Few, obviously, but like being there for a long time. Well, I guess.
Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah, for 7 years and then building on your program and having continued success. I think it just speaks on how good of a coach Etheridge really is.
Totally. I know it's unique because he just signed a contract extension just about several weeks ago, and it's she's had opportunities, I'm sure, to leave.
Oh yeah.
You know,
definitely offered.
Yeah, she's a college basketball Hall of Famer, a Olympic gold medalist, national champion in her playing days of Texas, was a key assistant at Kansas State. But now that she has been leading the Washington State Cougars in this program, it's been unique to see because she has 13 players in her team, but 10 different countries represented.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's able to tap into that international pipeline, which means that she has a little bit more loyal. It seems like the players are a little bit more loyal to her and to Washington State and to the experience because they don't really, it's a unique experience. They've already moved themselves. When I was asking Eleanor Bill last year about her decision, to stay at Washington State and what that was like, she was talking about how that she's already moved halfway across the world. She doesn't really have an interest in moving again, and she picked this place because of the coaches and of the relationships and of the people. And as long as that stays consistent, as long as the coaches stay and her teammates stay around her, then she's incentivized to stay. And so that's the key to a successful college basketball program is getting people that want to be there. It sounds cliche, but it's working for Washington State. And obviously a lot more, they're growing and, they would like to return to the NCAA tournament, but getting these WNIT wins and these minutes and getting these, game crunching moments, that's what you need to build a winning team in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, our last topic, I think, is the Mariners, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, Opening game is Thursday, correct?
Yeah, Thursday,
But
7:10 p.m.
on top of that, Cal Raleigh just signed his extension, 6 years, 105 million, which I think is pretty cheap, by the way,
Yeah, yeah.
for the player that Cal Raleigh is. So let's just break down the contract. 2025, $1 million salary, with $10 million signing bonus, $11 million for 2026. 2027 is $12 million. 2028 is 23. 2029 is 23. 2030 is 23, and 2031 is 20 million with a player option and a $2 million buyout. So what do you think about the Cal Raleigh extension, Sam?
I love it. I love it. It's as a Mariners fan, maybe you could guess the just the Cal Raleigh. He epitomizes and just physically represents everything that's been excellent about recent history. If the Mariners, obviously, the offense has been a weakness, but the pitching staff has been fantastic. And what's been the common thread throughout all the starters is Cal Raleigh. He's behind the dish. He's developing these relationships with all these premier starting pitchers. Logan Gilbert's the friendship that he has with Logan Gilbert, kind of growing up through the minors, is really awesome. Obviously, working with George Kirby, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, and Luis Castillo, like they've got that's I would say the best. I'm biased, but I'd say the best, if not top three rotation in right now
I
in
don't
Major
even
League
think it's
Baseball.
biased. I think it's just fact.
Yeah, I think it's fact to say top three. I think it's biased to just say it's the
Everyone.
best because
Okay.
there are some, but I mean you could definitely make the case though, like an unbiased case that Mariners are the best, and so
Yeah.
I think it's Cal Riley's just been the epitome of consistency, and then just obviously when you look back at 2022, September 30th, 2022, he's the one that hits that home run that wins the Mariners the game 2-1 and sends them to the playoffs for the first time since 2001. He's be forever ingrained in that, in the Mariners lore, and there's gonna be 20 years from now, hopefully the Mariners maybe have a World Series or two to look at with him as a key figure. But even if they pull the Mariners and do nothing else, they will have promo nights. They'll play that clip for like the rest of time. And the hope is that with this contract extension, he'll have a lot more highlights to add to that. And so, but I mean, there's nothing. He does everything right. It's just a matter of the players around him and the front office and the staff. But I think it's a huge win for the Mariners, and especially ahead of opening day when it's kind of been a sour offseason. You've got your additions in the offseason were Donovan Solano and bringing back Jorge Polanco, which doesn't necessarily jump off the page. And you've had all these PR blunders by Jerry DiPoto and company. Signing Cal Raleigh is like the best thing they could have done this week, and I think you'll see kind of an uptick of everyone will be happier when they step into those gates at T-Mobile Park or tune in on Root Sports, which now you can stream for $19.99 a month, which is cool too. So, but yeah, what do you think about Cal Raleigh and just the whole Mariners vibe going into this week?
Best year of his career, right?
Yeah.
34 home runs, a Gold Glove. I think it was his best year of like on base percentage as well. Yeah, definitely a great player who's important to the Mariners program. He's a building block to build on for the future. I mean, he's 28 years old, I think, but like, I mean, that's still in baseball. You can go a long time, but yeah, just building on good players that you built in your organization. I think is important for any baseball team's success.
Totally.
So this is how the Mariners go to be successful: is build on the players that they have. Hopefully, it's signing Logan Gilbert to extension instead of trading him away. So we'll see. But yeah, definitely a very good contract in my opinion. Very cheap in my opinion for Cal Raleigh for the player that he is. $105 million seems like a lot of money, but like if you're looking at some of the best players in baseball that make a lot more, obviously. But great contract, good building block, and Cal Raleigh's a terrific player.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the catching market, and given his age, I feel like that's how they kind of arrived at that number with his agents and stuff. It's also interesting that Cal Raleigh did switch representation this year.
Yeah.
He had Scott Boras, which I think infamously negotiated the Alex Rodriguez mega deal in 2000 with the Rangers that kind of brought him away from the Mariners. But I don't think it was anything like too deep. It was just that he wanted to go in a different direction or whatever. And so I actually don't know who his new representation is. But it's not Scott Boras, and maybe that contributed, maybe that didn't. But who knows? The fact is, Cal Raleigh signed his name in that dotted line, and the Mariners have him for the next 6 years or so, and so potentially 7, but we'll see how. Yeah.
And Logan Gilbert is pitching on opening day, correct?
Yeah, I love that move. I just think it's because the battle was like the conversation was, do honor Luis Castillo and the fact that, he's the veteran. He has 3 goals every year, be an opening day starter, win Cy Young, and win the World Series. And now you're kind of, he's not achieving one of those. But I think that he would say not that, who you have, it's basically symbolic to an extent. I mean, when it comes to like the postseason, obviously it becomes a little more strategic. But when you're facing the Athletics in March, it's like, it doesn't, it's more of a symbolic, like, fanfare of, it's an honor of like, it still matters, but it's not as strategically impactful necessarily. But the fact is that I think Luis Castillo would much rather, if you asked him, which one of those goals would you rather achieve? I think it's number 3, that we're in the World Series.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Mariners have the rotation to get that done. And Logan Gilbert's another guy drafted by the Mariners, developed through their system. I think was roommates of Cal Raleigh in the minors.
Yeah, I think so.
And now, back, you'll have Cal Raleigh for his extension behind the plate and Logan Gilbert getting a standing ovation as he steps out onto that mound. Like the vibes are definitely up, and it's exciting.
It's kind of crazy to like, I guess just the start of the season twist the Mariners, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
The way that we look at the Mariners.
The 180 moves.
Yes,
right?
yeah. We're so down. So many fans of the Mariners are down, and then the season's about to begin. Oh, we're right back up. We're going to be so good. We're going to win the World Series. I think it's just an interesting dynamic for Mariners fans. But yeah, I think it's a good move too. Logan Gilbert is an excellent pitcher. And yeah, I mean, playing the Las Vegas A's of Sacramento is a very interesting start of the season. So yeah, I think he'll probably get the win and look good for the rest of the season.
Totally. Yeah, lots to be excited for the Mariners, and we'll have the gamers of the Mariners in our paper every day, Lewiston Tribune, and then online at lewistontribune.com. And so we'll definitely have you covered with your regional and national sports scene here at the Lewiston Tribune. And thanks. I guess any closing thoughts for the week?
Read about sports, listen about sports, watch sports. Thank you for listening. Go ahead, Sam, sign us out.
Heck yeah. Thanks, Trevor. Be sure to listen, as Trevor said, read us at Lewiston Tribune, lmtribune.com. Listen to us, The Final Whistle, every week. And we thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Have a great one. Thanks.